All right, today we're taking a journey way, way back in time. We're going to explore the Indian subcontinent as it was thousands of years ago, long before any borders or empires we know today, to uncover the story of its very first people. But how do you even begin to tell a story from a time before most stories were written down? It's kind of like being a detective, trying to piece together this massive puzzle from clues that have been buried under thousands of years of Earth. So, let's take a look at how historians actually crack the case.
So, before we can even dive into what happened, we first have to understand how we know what we know. Every detective has their special toolkit, and for historians and archaeologists, it's all about knowing where to look and, more importantly, how to read the clues they find. And this toolkit is pretty fascinating. You've got archaeologists who literally unearth the past. They're digging up everything from simple tools and ancient bones to the foundations of entire buildings. Then you have experts who examine these incredibly delicate manuscripts, texts written by hand ages ago, and others who work to decipher inscriptions, messages that were carved into super durable materials like stone or metal. Each one of these is like a tiny, precious fragment of a much, much bigger story.
Okay, so now that we have our toolkit, let's actually put it to work. We're going to use it to get a feel for the lives of the very first people to call this land home. And it was a life that was constantly, and I mean constantly, in motion.
For hundreds of thousands of years, the human story was all about being hunter-gatherers. Now, this meant living a nomadic life, always on the move, following animal herds and the seasons for wild plants. In fact, some of the absolute earliest evidence of this way of life on the subcontinent has been found right along the Narmada River in central India.
I mean, just try to imagine that for a second. Your entire existence, every single day, is just a constant search for food, for fresh water, and for a safe place to rest your head. These early humans moved around in small, super efficient groups, living a life that was, you can imagine, incredibly challenging.
And then, something happened. Something that would totally, fundamentally change the course of human history forever. It wasn't just a single event. It was a revolution. The farming revolution.
And you really can't overstate how massive this change was. Life went from being nomadic to being settled. Instead of just finding food wherever you could, people actually started producing their own food. This meant that small mobile bands could now grow into larger permanent villages. The focus could shift away from pure day-to-day survival to actually building communities. It was a total game changer for human society.
So what did this new life actually look like? Well, people started cultivating their own crops, things like wheat and barley. They began domesticating animals like sheep, goats, and cattle. And all this new stability, it sparked innovation. People developed pottery so they could store their surplus grain, and they created new kinds of polished stone tools to work the land way more effectively.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective. So about 8,000 years ago, farming starts to pop up in the hills of modern-day Pakistan. But look at that gap. It's more than 3,000 years later that this new way of life finally sets the stage for the next incredible leap forward, the rise of the very first cities along the Indus River.
And that brings us to those first cities. Now, these weren't just big villages. What we're talking about here is the dawn of a true, complex urban civilization on the subcontinent. And the most incredible thing about these cities? They weren't just accidental growths. They were planned, meticulously designed with a level of engineering and foresight that is frankly staggering for that time period. Think about what this means. We're talking about major cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro that had streets laid out in a grid pattern, a design that many of our own cities still use today. They had advanced, covered drainage systems for sanitation. Houses weren't just slapped together with mud. They were built from standardized, baked bricks. This all points to an amazing level of organization and central planning.
And remember that timeline. This was all happening nearly 5,000 years ago. So while the Great Pyramids were being built over in Egypt, an equally sophisticated urban culture was thriving right here in the Indus Valley. It's just truly mind-blowing.
Life in these cities was surprisingly diverse. While farmers in the countryside provided the food, the cities themselves were these bustling hubs for skilled crafters making intricate pottery, beautiful beads, and carved stone seals. And they weren't isolated either. We have evidence of a huge trade network, with their goods reaching as far away as Mesopotamia in what's modern-day Iraq.
But for all their sophistication, for all their success, the story of these magnificent cities doesn't exactly have a clear ending. In fact, it ends with one of the greatest mysteries in all of ancient history.
After flourishing for centuries, these bustling urban centers just started to decline. People began to abandon them, leaving these incredible, planned cities behind. And the one question that has puzzled historians for decades is, why? Where did everybody go?
Well, there is no single, easy answer. The leading theories all seem to point to environmental factors. Maybe there were catastrophic floods that just kept wiping out their infrastructure. Or maybe it was a much slower process, a gradual shift in the climate that made the whole region drier, making farming really difficult. Another really strong possibility is that the mighty Indus River itself actually changed its course, leaving these once thriving cities high and dry.
The end of the Indus Valley civilization is such a powerful reminder that even the most advanced societies can be fragile. And this quote just captures it perfectly. The past is never dead. It's not even past. The story of their incredible rise, their mysterious fall, and the questions they leave behind, they are still very much with us today, echoing through time.
And that really leads to one final provocative thought. Just as we puzzle over the silent ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, what clues are we leaving behind right now? What will the archaeologists of the future find most mysterious about us?